You know, for centuries, one of the Quran's most compelling figures has been a total mystery. We're talking about Dhul-Qarnayn, this powerful, God-fearing ruler who travels to the very ends of the earth. But who was he really? Well, his true identity has been debated forever. Okay, so let's just dive right into that question. The analysis we're exploring today, well, it offers an answer that you're probably not expecting. It kind of steps away from all the usual historical candidates to propose a solution that's found entirely within the scripture itself. That's right. Forget Alexander the Great, forget Cyrus the Great. This analysis argues that the clues were never really hidden in some external history book. Nope, they were hiding in plain sight through direct linguistic and thematic parallels right there in the Quran, pointing straight to the prophet David. So, to really get a handle on this argument, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the mystery itself. Then look at this really surprising claim. From there, we'll dig into the direct textual evidence, we'll decode that famous barrier he built, and finally, we'll see how this whole thing connects to a major prophecy about the end of times. All right, so first things first, let's just do a quick refresh on the mystery. Who is Dhul-Qarnayn? Well, the Quran introduces him as this incredibly righteous ruler who was given immense power by God. He travels to the farthest corners of the earth. He dispenses justice. And his most famous act? Building a massive barrier to contain the destructive forces of Gog and Magog. So, who does this analysis claim is the true identity of Dhul-Qarnayn? Well, the central claim, the big idea, is that this mighty builder is none other than the prophet David. And this isn't just a random guess. It's all based on a really meticulous comparison of the Quranic verses that describe both of these figures. Okay, so the entire foundation of this theory really rests on these textual parallels. Now, what's so cool about what we're about to see is how the source material literally places the descriptions of Dhul-Qarnayn and David side by side. And when you see it, you start to notice some pretty startling similarities. First up, let's talk about power. Both figures are described in almost identical language as being granted authority and being established on earth directly by God. We're not just talking about being a king here. This is a divinely appointed succession. And the parallels just keep going when you look at divine provision. The Quran says Dhul-Qarnayn was given a means to achieve anything. Meanwhile, David, speaking with his son Solomon, says they were given from all things. I mean, that suggests a level of divine support and resources for both of them that is just off the charts. Now, this is a crucial point, their role as judges. God explicitly gives Dhul-Qarnayn the authority to either punish or to show mercy. And in a similar way, David is commanded to judge between the people in truth. They're both presented as these supreme arbiters of justice on earth. And this might be one of the most compelling connections of all. The timing of Dhul-Qarnayn's journeys to the place of sunset and sunrise, it's an exact mirror of the specific times of day that David is described as glorifying God with the mountains, in the evening and at sunrise. The source we're looking at says, hey, that is no coincidence. Okay, this is where the argument really gets into the weeds, because the key here is a linguistic re-examination of the original Arabic words used to describe the barrier. The source suggests that, hey, for centuries, we might have been misinterpreting these key terms literally when they could hold a much, much deeper symbolic meaning. So the analysis points out that the word used here, hadid, is also used in other places in the Quran to mean limits, as in the limits of God. So when Dhul-Qarnayn asks for Zubar al-Hadid, the argument goes he isn't asking for literal blocks of iron. He's asking for the authority to establish these divine, impassable borders. And it's the same idea for the next term, Qutr. The argument is that this word is related to Aqtar, which means regions or frontiers. So pouring Qutr over the barrier wasn't about coating it in molten copper. It was about sealing it as a divinely sanctioned regional boundary, separating one part of creation from another. But here's the real keystone, the thing that ties it all together. There's a verse that says God taught David how to make labis to protect humanity from harm. The source argues this labis isn't a simple coat of mail. It's a reference to this very barrier, a divine shield for all of us, which would explain why the verse asks all of humanity, will you be grateful? So finally, this whole symbolic interpretation of the barrier, it connects its existence directly to a major Quranic prophecy about the end of days. This makes it so much more than just a physical wall. Its fate is literally tied to the fate of the world. Dhul-Qarnayn himself says that the barrier is a mercy from God, but it's not permanent. When God's final promise comes, it will be made level, or Decca. And that's the exact same word used to describe the mountains being leveled on the Day of Judgment. So the fall of this barrier is directly linked to the end of the world. All right, so let's just pull all those pieces together real quick. The core claim is that Dhul-Qarnayn is David, and this is based on direct textual parallels. The absolute key to this whole theory is reinterpreting his barrier, not as a physical wall of iron and copper, but as a divinely established boundary, a kind of protective shield whose destruction is a major sign of the end times. This entire analysis is built on a pretty simple idea that the Quran explains itself, that if you set aside all the historical assumptions and just look really closely at the language, a new, totally coherent picture can emerge. And it kind of leaves us with this one compelling final thought. What other ancient mysteries could be unlocked if we just look again, a little more closely at the words themselves?